and welcome to First Purchase to Financial Freedom presentation. My name is Salesh Chand, and I'm a chartered accountant in public practice. Today, as our team as well, we'll be presenting for about 60 to 90 minutes, depending on the feedback we get from you guys. And to make the presentation more exciting, I'd love to get questions from you throughout the presentation because it's kind of hard for us to keep talking to a screen. So if you interact with us, it's actually really nice, and you get free answers. You don't need to pass. So there you go. So get your questions coming. We'll answer them as we go, or we'll stop the presentation and answer them if they're really exciting questions. We'll also hang around at the end of the presentation and answer questions for you. And it all depends how we go for the night. It could be 60 to 90 minutes. We can be out of here. But if you've got some amazing and good questions, we can keep going. We don't mind answering your questions. Just before I move on any further, I just want to make it clear that we are chartered accountants. We are not financial advisors, so we're not giving any financial advisory work here. It's all just to do with accounting and just your investments, but no financial advice at all. Just a disclaimer here. So just give you a quick background on myself. I'm a chartered accountant public practice. I'm a partner here at GRA. I have just over 18 years experience in property and business accounting. I'm also an active property investor, so I buy and hold properties for long term. I've been doing this for a while. I also buy properties, build houses, and on-sell them. And I invest in land banking assets and cash flow positive properties. Right, those are what I invest in, and I'm a big supporter of property investing, and I've surrounded myself with the people who believe in property investing as well. Currently, in the whole portfolio, we have over 60 whole properties. These are properties with big land. We can subdivide and build, and if we subdivided these properties, we'll end up with a couple of hundred sites. It's a cash flow positive property, so we've got good cash flow coming in. And in our construction side of the business, we've got 25 new builds underway. That's quite exciting because we've just finished all our previous projects and we're getting into some new projects. And we'll talk about it later in our presentation and show you examples as well. Just to give an example of how I started in property and what happened to me. In 2007, I was a graduate. I owed about $30,000 in student loan. I had $16,000 owing on a car, and I borrowed extra $1,000 to put some mag wheels on. So it was a Ford Falcon. And back in 2007, I live out west. I'm a hardcore Westie. So it was pretty cool to drive a black on black car. So I was nicknamed the Night Rider by my mates. But I did have my car, so I ended up with 47 grand debt, including my student loan. I bought my first property in 2010 after going to all the seminars, listening to people, listening to clients, what are they doing, and just listening. And something that clicked with me was capital gain properties. You buy capital gain assets and cash flow. So that clicked in with me. And 2010 is when I first started buying my properties. And today we are in 2026. I have 50 million plus in the property portfolio with our team, and we got 50 plus. And that's just the properties, not anything else. And it's cash flow positive, and we've got massive cash reserves as well. So not only that, if we're out in the field looking to buy properties to build, we don't need to take any funding or things like that. We've got cash reserves to run our own projects. So that's the kind of financial position we've got ourselves into. And I personally like making about $50,000 a month on property growth. That's the minimum I like to make. And over the years, we've accumulated the wealth, and it's come to just over $50 million in property portfolio. So, and that's years and years, hasn't been, it didn't happen overnight. So it's taken us at least good 10 plus years to create this portfolio. But I've also got a lot of clients over the years. They've created amazing portfolios. I've got Than presenting with me and Maggie, and they've created some good cash flow positive portfolios as well. If you don't know who GRA is and what we do, just a quick background information. We are a chartered accounting firm in Newmarket, Auckland. We are quite a large firm in terms of representing clients in businesses and property investors as well. We've been around for a long time, and we love supporting our client base. The beautiful thing about property investing is you start investing, and 10 years later, literally, you double your wealth, right? And that's only if you buy a property as well, right? So that's what we've seen over the years in our client base as well. We also do insolvency advice. So if you're in trouble, you haven't paid your bills, we can help you with that or protect your assets. We can give you tax advice and help you minimize your tax as well. So that's all bespoke advice. It all depends on what your circumstances are. Like, for example, if you've got loans and you're not getting interest deductibility, you should come and see us. We can help you and see if we can get interest deductibility in your business. We also do form trust for you, and we provide professional trustee services. I'm one of the professional trustees, so I help manage clients' trust if needed. We also do property investment and education as well, and that's what you're listening to now. We've got property school, property development school, and we do property information evenings like today. I've also got Thane presenting with me and Maggie. They're very old friends of mine. And I liaise with Thane and Maggie every day regarding property investments, due diligence, and things like that. Now, in the event you're looking at getting into property investing, you need to talk to someone. Thane and Maggie are very informative. They're $250 an hour, but the amount of information they can provide you is next level. And in the event that they can't help you, they will guide you through to the right professionals you should be using. So very informative guys here. So Ben and Maggie, and also they are more site based, so they're always on site. They know what's happening out there. They know how to deal with vector, council, and things like that, and they can guide you through those places. Now, guys, one of the things we do is we appreciate your time in listening to us and listening to our presentation and what we do. And over the years, Then and I and Maggie have decided to give prize away. Now, what happens is if you fill out this form, what we do is we book you for initial meeting if you're not a GRA client, and it's free. If you're a GRA client, we'll book you for a meeting and that'll be done in cost, but we'll discuss that upfront with you. We also, what we do is we draw prizes after every presentation because we feel like we need to give back. And today, Then and I agreed that what we'll do is the prizes. How about dinner with Then, me, because Maggie's in Masterton, otherwise we'd have dragged Maggie down to dinner as well, and Matthew Gilligan. The three of us will take you out for dinner. If you fill out the form, we'll draw it tomorrow, and you go and have dinner with us, and we talk about property investing. We'll talk about things in our personal life, what we've been up to, and and we'll obviously talk about you and your financial affairs as well. It's probably a $10,000 price, by the time we take you out and look after you. But it's something that I would like to give back to our listeners. So if you do fill out our forms for meeting time, you can come out and you can go into a draw to win a prize to have dinner with Than, uh, Matt, and I. And I can assure you, you will love it. And this includes your spouse as well. If you want to bring your spouse, we're more than happy to meet your spouse. So fill out the form, and we'll draw this prize tomorrow, and hopefully it's one of you coming out for dinner with us. It will be fun, I promise. It won't be all accounting talk. Just a quick background in terms of what's happening in the property market. Now, Then and I and Maggie we are on the property market. In terms of property market, we're on the ground every single day. We're either renovating, we're on site, or we're at auctions with clients, or we're buying our own assets as well, right? So we feel like, and with the banks, we have bank meetings all the time. So I feel like that we are quite informative when it comes to the property market. Not only that we read other people's story, right? What's happening in the property market, we actually are there doing it ourselves, right? So probably the best guys to talk to is us. What I'm seeing with interest rates, it is increasing, but at a very slow pace. You can still pick up good 1 year rates at around 4.6, 4.7%, right? Those are your 1 year rates, but the 3 year rates are slightly higher. The trend in the market is to book for 2, 3, or 4 years. That's what I'm seeing the trend is. I'm also seeing a lot of clients leaving their loan on floating because they're happy to take some risk. But more conservative clients are going and fixing their loans for 5 years and going, we don't care, book it in for 5 years, we don't want to know about it. What we've recently noticed in the market is there's been more buyers in the market. And I think what's happened is the sellers are more realistic about what they're going to sell their properties for. So more buyers are in the market looking for properties. Immigration door is opening slowly, very slowly. We're seeing people come in and they're buying properties, which is fantastic news for the whole country. Because when people come in, they buy houses, they spend money, the local businesses get busy. and everyone else does well. So that's happening in the market as well. What we've noticed, especially in the last 4 weeks, there's a lot of developers out there buying land and they're buying them left, right, and center. I've got a very good friend who is a real estate agent. She's been telling this, she's been trying to sell this last development site for the last 6 months. Couldn't get any offer. She was begging me to put an offer on it too. And I was just too busy to even look at the site. I rang her this week. She goes, I got two offers on Monday and the property's under contract, right? Not one buyer, two buyers. So it's taking off, guys. And I reckon it's taking off because the land is cheaper in the sense that the sellers are meeting the market expectation. And also, developers know what their margins are going to be if they buy it at the right price. So it's happening, properties are selling. Lending is relaxed. So, but we've seen the banks, they are somewhat relaxed if you're dealing with the right mortgage brokers and right bankers. They are allowing you to borrow more money. Now, they're encouraging businesses to borrow more money. They're helping businesses to expand. So it's easier to get business lending than home lending at the moment. So if you're a businessman, make sure you go and put some working facility, working facilities or credits around your business. Why not? If the banks are happy to fund you and look after you, why not? They're doing 100% funding if you buy your own owner-occupied building. So there's some good opportunities there for business people to borrow money. On the other hand, if you're more working mom and dad, easy to get money to buy good properties. Also for business owners, it's easy to get money to buy properties. The rental around the country that's been we've seen the market has been stabilized. So rent is not going as high as what it used to do previously, but it is slightly going high, slightly, very slight, like $10 to $20 a year increase. But also what we've noticed is tenants are not moving out because the cost of moving to another property is literally about 5 grand. So tenants are not wanting to move out. They're sticking to where they are. So if you've got a good tenant, look after them, guys. Don't worry about the $10, $20 increases. If you've got a very good tenant, look after them. What we've also noticed in the market, maybe in the last 2 weeks, more in the last 2 weeks, is we've seen Kiwis are not spending money. So we've seen, Kiwis are not spending money in terms of renovations, supermarkets. Everyone's holding on to their cash. The cafes are empty. I've been around to the local cafes in Newmarket. They're all sitting empty. So that's what I've been noticing. First-time buyers out in numbers. Then in the group, well, Then and I and a couple of the boys, we finished a project. As soon as we got the title out, all the stock was sold within 4 days. Sold, gone. So what the first-time buyers are out in numbers. We had 5 properties sold in 4 days, gone. And what we've noticed in the market, guys, cost of building is only going through the roof. It's going up and up and up. So this is what's happening in the market. So if you think you can get a bargain a year later, guys, that's not happening. The bargain is there now. If you can find a development site with a property on it, you don't have to develop the site now. Just buy and bank it. There's some amazing deals happening at the moment. Then, you've been out on the market every day. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, along with talking to clients and seeing on the market, we're always getting phone calls from agents saying, "Look at this stock, look at this, this is priced to sell." So, like you said, vendors are meeting the market in respect to price so that stocks are moving.
Yes. Yes. And in terms of we one more thing, right? We seem to use a lot of professionals, like architects, and these guys are all getting really busy at the moment, right? It's really you have to ring them 10 times a day till they answer their phone call.
Or they're pretending to be busy so that they can charge us more.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Either that's what's happening, but it's really hard to get guys to pick up the phone straight away. So you want to discuss something. But anyway, we do have good connections. So if anyone's struggling out there, feel free to get hold of us and we'll help you. Now, guys, this is a auction photo room. The one on the left, I took that photo in February 2023. I was the only guy in the auction room. And on that day, everyone was so excited because someone showed up to auction. Even the auctioneers were quite excited. Then on the right is the auction room in March 2026. You can see it's packed, same auction room, all the way out to the back, and people standing on the second floor as well. Now, that was March 2026. This was last week. Look at this, guys. Properties are selling. You know, People have realistic price and properties are going out the door. You can see the first property at 665, 655. That's an entry level property, you know. So you've got hundreds of buyers chasing those kind of properties. Then you can see the property selling in millions, you know, over $1 million, no problem. People are paying good price for them and they're selling like hotcakes. So properties are selling, guys. And so if you're waiting for a good time to buy, well, now's your time. Don't wait too long, you know, because these numbers are good numbers and the buyers are out in numbers buying properties. So if you need to be out there looking for deals, you'll find it. Now, this is a deal that we got under contract last week. That we see other clients and other smart investors are buying at the moment. So this is the one we got it under contract. It's in Hillsborough. Um, we got it under contract at $1 million. And the market value is about $1.5 million. So we've got instant equity of 500K. Now that's insane. You know, for someone to earn 500 grand, you've got to go in $1 million, pay GST, income tax to end up with 500 grand in your hand. So we made 500 on this side instantly. We're building 3 houses on this side and we're going to sell it. There's no intention here to hold on to the properties. But what we're saying is maybe 2 weeks or 4 weeks ago, we would have paid 1.5 for this side, you know, but it's just being at the right place, negotiating well. We picked it up for $1.1 million. Now, guys, this is what I mean being smart investors. If anyone goes to me, what should I do in this market? Go and hunt for discounted properties. I made my money in 2010 buying discounted properties, right? I made more money when the market was at the bottom with discounted properties. So now is the time to make the move. If you're looking at getting into property markets, go and hunt for a deal and make yourself instant equity, right? You know, and you can refinance and use the equity again and again to buy more properties. So that's what's happening in the market recently. People are chasing discounted properties and they're chasing them quite hard. Now, guys, something I talk about all the time is positive cash flow and poverty cash flow properties. This is really important. Now, poverty cash positive cash flow is so important for your personal household as well, because you know everyone has bills to pay, right? You got your normal household bills to pay, you got your business expenses to pay, you got a rental property expenses to pay, everything else. So cash flow positive is really important, and that's good for your well-being as well because you make the right decisions when you have positive cash flow in your household. So very important. You know, you keep your job, you keep your business, and you've got rental income coming in, which is cash flow positive, right? Because when things go up, like such as interest rates go up or increasing costs, you're getting a cost of living crisis at the moment. If you got positive cash flow, you can pay for things, right? You don't need to go back to the banks and ask them for support because you have cash flow positive um, position. So it's important that you always protect your cash flow positive position. And as a result, you can do well. Now, also, what we do is we tell clients to buy cash flow positive rental properties because that's quite important. The more cash flow positive rental properties you buy, they can support themselves as well, right? So really important, guys. And then if you do end up with some negative properties for whatever reasons, because they're big development sites or whatever, the cash flow positive rental can support your negative, right? So you'll hear me say cash flow positive throughout the presentation. And if you look at my last 7 or 8 years of presentation, I'm always on cash flow positive. I've done well in my life out of buying cash flow positive properties. I've done well by paying off debt down, right? I believe in paying off debt because I want to have control over the banks. I don't want the banks to control me. So I like to pay my debt down or increase my principal repayments. Um, Also, when you're cash flow positive, you can save money, put up more deposits for another purchase or another rental property, and then you can also pay for cost of renovating properties. You don't have to go to the banks for cash all the time. Um, One of the biggest advantage of having cash flow positive portfolio or cash flow positive at home as your household income is you can reduce your debt level down. And that's where I was saying that you get to control your banks and the banks don't get to control you. And one of the other things we talk about is regular income. If you don't have regular income, right, you will not get bank funding. So very important, if you're a husband, wife, you look after your income, protect your income, make sure you have insurance in place. Touch wood, no one gets sick. If you do get sick, you've got insurance that kicks in. and you can keep continuing to live your normal life. Um, what scares me most is I've seen people give up their job and become full-time property traders. Now, some people are really good at this, right? But it doesn't work all the time, right? So you've got to be very careful becoming a full-time property trader. You've got to make sure that you still have some sort of cash flow at home to pay for your bills. Because every morning you wake up, you still got to turn the power on, you still got to put food on the table, right? You got to feed your dog and your cats, and then, so you got to be careful, you know, you know. So very important, you've got to feed your kids. Kids eat 24/7, and so very important you protect your regular income. And like we said, if you've got regular income, you get qualified for property investing as well, which means you can borrow money and invest, and you can invest in good discounted properties or cash flow positive portfolios. If you're relying on income from property trading, guys, to become bankable, the banks will say no. It's a big no, 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 no. So very important that if you are going to do any sort of property trading, you still continue to have a job or you got a spouse that's earning good money. If you've got a spouse that's earning good money, you can go out and do property trading, right? Because sometimes it could take you 4 months to finish a project and you get paid, but you can't go 4 months without paying your bills. So really important, guys, you protect your income. Don't worry, the reason we remind you to do this every time is because we've seen people make this mistake, become full-time property investors in our probably every month I'll catch up with someone who's become a full-time property investor, giving up their job. So be very careful. If you don't know what to do, just talk to us. Make an appointment, come and see us, and we'll work through the scenario with you because we're independent, right? We'll give you our independent opinion on it. Now, when you also have cash flow positive, you've also got regular income. The advantage is you can borrow money and grow your portfolio, right? Like I said, it's so much easier to borrow money at the moment, and you can borrow money to buy good discounted properties and grow a portfolio faster. That includes cash flow positive properties, So very important, guys, and then you get to manage borrowing as well. So what you can do is you can choose if you want to pay interest only or you want to pay P&I. Very important. If you can afford P&I, which is principal and interest repayments, please do that. Now, this point is very important, guys. If you have equity, right? If you have equity in your home, in your business, or any other investments, make sure tomorrow you approach your mortgage broker. If you don't have one, get hold of one, or get a hold of your banker, or email us and we'll provide you details of mortgage brokers or bankers you should be using, right? If you have equity, please go and refinance and put your working capital facilities in place because they're so easy to get at the moment, right? Your offset accounts, your overdraft facilities, right? They're so easy to get. So if you have equity, go out and do it now. It costs you no money to do it, right? It's zero cost. Go and do it now. Do you agree, then?
Yeah, definitely. Because you don't want to be in a position when it gets harder to apply for an overdraft facility because once it's approved, money sits there and you could use it whenever you want. So the last thing is when banks are quiet, when things get easy, go out there and do it because we've been in a situation where we've seen clients wanting to get it but couldn't get it because the situations have changed and banks are being tighter.
Exactly. And it's free money.
Mm.
It's free. Like you only pay interest when you use it, right? But to put the facility in, it's free. And because you might be refinancing to another bank, you could end up getting 30, 40 grand cash back as well. There's some big cashbacks going on at the moment, guys. So that's a very important point that we're picking up here. If you have equity, please go and put some of these facilities in or refinance or play the banks. The banks makes billions of dollars, so don't feel sorry for them. Use these things to your advantage. They're the ones who are giving their products out and giving cash back to you.
And
You're doing a favor by becoming their client.
And I guess to add to that, I mean, working capital, which is probably the next slide, but having fund available to you, it gives you more power when you're negotiating a deal versus having to put an offer through subject to finance and all these other conditions. But when you have cash, you can narrow your conditions and negotiate a deal a lot quicker.
Absolutely, and the biggest thing is, when you have working capital. Now, working capital, guys, is your overdraft facility, cash in the bank, offset facility, your credit cards, how much money do you have access to, right? That's what a working capital facility means. Like if you decided not to go to work tomorrow, how much cash do you have access to? How long will it last you, right?
Or Salesh's credit card.
Yeah, or things like that. But I personally, in the last 3 years, I worked so hard, and I've said in the presentation, and Thin and Maggie knows about this as well. I've created about $5.5 million of working capital facility. You know, so in the whole portfolio, I can access 5.5 million. That's a lot of money to access. I've never spent $5.5 million on myself. Yet, but that's got a big smile. Well,
No, you don't. You're very smart with your money, but it's
yeah.
having the fund available so that you can make straight, smart decisions quickly.
Yeah, exactly. And don't worry, I look at Trade Me every night about buying all these cars. I've got that habit. So don't worry about that. I go through just like every other normal person does. I should buy a new car. I should buy another supercar. I should do this. I should do that. Then I slap myself and wake up and say, stop, stop all that nonsense. But the reason I have this massive working capital is because I want to grow. I actually want to grow, and I don't want the banks to control my life. I want to control the banks and tell them what I want. So very important. Working capital facility is super important, guys. It doesn't matter if you earn 200 grand a year or $1.5 million a year. You must have working capital facilities in place, right? So, and if you don't understand this, come and see us, and we'll help you put this in place. I'm not a financial advisor, so I'll guide you through to a financial advisor who can do that. But I know what the products are, and I can guide you through that. Like I said, I want control of my portfolio and the banks. That's why I have massive working facilities. So the bigger the portfolio you have, the chances of getting a bigger working capital facility is high as well. The banks like to give you more working capital facility, and it's play cheap money. It's one of the cheapest money out there. I mean, you probably end up paying $20 or $30 a month in banking fee. But if you use the facility, you pay the floating interest rate, and there's no fee in terms of like having to use it and repay. Fantastic. Go and use it. And he also allows you to sleep peacefully because you've got access to all this money. In the event you can't go to work tomorrow, you still have access to this facility, right? So I set this up for my clients all the time with the bankers. I want massive working capital facilities. In the event something happens in their life, they don't need to worry about money. And also, if you do find a good property, you can write a deposit out on the day and say, here's my deposit. I'm going to put an offer unconditional. You can do things like that. But please don't go and do an unconditional offer without checking the title, without checking the property. Make an attempt. Even if you get like 5 days DD, you know, like you just want to make sure you check the property correctly. We've you got flooding issues and things like this. Now, this is a pie chart that I've drawn up. Now, this is obviously my brain. I'm an accountant, so stay with me here. But this is actually quite a good portfolio in terms of understanding what happens if you don't have working capital and you have working capital. So this particular person here has, land and building investment, $1 million. They've got business worth $1.5 million, family home, 2 million. You've got batch of 900 grand, and then you've got working capital of $50,000. Now, I'm just going to ignore their debt level, whatever their debt is, right? We'll just ignore the debt for now. So whatever you do in this portfolio, this particular portfolio will always be nervous, or the people behind this will be nervous because they've only got 50 grand. So they're going to live payday to payday. They'll be waiting for their Friday pay to come in and get excited, to go to the local pub, even though they've got so much capital behind them. So how do we fix this? We do this. Is same scenario, right? We run the same scenario. And what we do here is we throw in a working capital facility, like an overdraft facility or things like that, which gives them access, which is about 10% of their portfolio, right? Now they've got access to 540 grand instead of 50 grand. And how do we get access to that? We just increase our limit with the banks, right? So if you do have good equity, you've got good businesses, the banks are out there lending at the moment, allowing you to put some good facilities in place, which I'm referring to as working capital, right? And if something happened in this portfolio, right, and you didn't see it coming, some unforeseeable event, right? You've got access to 540 grand. That's going to keep you ticking away. So working capital facility is super important, guys. It's changed my life. It literally has changed my life. I never thought I'd walk into like, car yards and go, yeah, I'm going to have that car, I'm going to have that car and don't care about it, because I've got good facilities behind me, right? So what it does, I mean, I talk about cars because I like cars and I like properties, but some people like shares. So it's okay. If you've got a working capital facility like this, you might throw 40, 50 grand to shares. You don't care because you've got a big working capital facility. But when you have $50,000, you're thinking three times before making any decisions in your life, right? So working capital facility is important. It will make you feel rich. It will make you comfortable. It will make you appreciate your portfolio more. But if you have your portfolio in this manner with very limited working capital, you'll start casing your accountant or you start casing me. Oh, no, Salesh told us to get into properties. But then all you needed to do was fix it by putting a working capital facility. So, guys, please take a photo of this and go and sort your working capital facilities out. Now, one other important information is asset protection and split loan. I'm a big believer of asset protection, the company structure, the trust structure, the banking structure, right? You must always have your family home sitting with Bank One. So let's say Bank One is ANZ, for argument's sake. You must have it sitting there. You have your overdraft with ANZ, right? If you're looking at doing, say, a rental property, you go to Bank Three, which could be, say, ASB. If you're looking at doing development, you go to Bank Two, which could be TSB, right? And this is what we call a split loan structure, right? It doesn't cost much to set up a structure like this, but what it does, it protects your family home from creditors. It protects your family home from other banks, right? They can't put their hands into your family home. But a split loan structure is so important that, I promote this and I've been promoting this for years and years and years. When I had more hair on my head, I was promoting this structure and I'm still promoting it today. Nothing has changed, guys. And then do you agree when people set this up properly, their
Yep.
finances get quite easy?
Definitely. And, then now you could also talk to each bank differently and, set up new revolving credit facilities with each one of them.
Yes, absolutely. You could have three revolving credit facilities, but the biggest thing is Bank Two and Bank Three don't have any say in your home, which is banked with Bank One. So really important, guys. Very important. So, and the more bankers the better it is for you to grow a portfolio. Then comes to all my banking meetings, and I always look after my bankers. I always have the respect for my bankers, even though if they're making mistakes, I always respect my bankers. Do not fight with your bankers, guys, because you will get in trouble. Remember, the bankers don't need you, right? If you start getting annoying to them, they don't need you. They'll do everything in their power to get rid of you. So be nice to your bankers. Always appreciate. Always send them gifts, like to your bankers and your accountants, right? I drink whiskey, right? So you must always send them gifts. Very important because the bankers, lawyers, accountants will always look after you, right? So small things are important. Just always make a list of people I send gifts to, and it's important. You give gifts, and if there's a death in their family, or you send them something small. You show them appreciation. Because sometimes people go through a hard time in life, but if you send them a little gift, they appreciate that. So, guys, that kind of structure is very important. Now, what I'm going to show you now is some of my cash flow positive portfolio, right? And what I look for and what I buy. This is one of the properties we bought in Weymouth with a couple of my mates. We got drunk and he said, okay, go and buy property. So we went and bought this property, front house, back house in Weymouth. We paid $707,000. That was a few years ago. This property now, probably you can pick it up for about $1.1 million. You probably end up getting more rent as well, right? We kept the same tenants. We didn't, they don't annoy us. They live there happily. Now and then we go and fix up the property. Just get on with it. But we made instant equity of $350,000. So we picked up two properties, instant equity. We picked up land, right? And we're getting $1,100 a week rent, 57 grand a year. Once you pay all the fees and everything else, you bank 37 grand. Once you clear the banks at 70% LVR, we're still 24 grand a year cash flow positive, you know? And what we do is we just keep paying the principal off. We're hammering through the debt like anything. So Why is this example important? It's cash flow positive to income, rear, front. One. Secondly, it's land banking. It's a big site, like 650, 700 meters square. That's big for Auckland, right? Because you can build 4 or 5 houses here, right? And big tick, tick, and it's a rental stock. It works well. So this is the example of cash flow. And I tell you this, you might say to me, they don't exist anymore. Yes, they do. Then and I see them all the time. Our clients buy better properties than we do, right?
That's true. Most of the time we see the once it comes to going, how come we never saw that?
Yeah. How come we never get deals like that? And to be honest, if a client is on a property, we don't compete with our clients. We have
Yes.
no interest, zero interest in competing with our clients. The reason is we have a lot of stocks ourselves. We just made a rule we'll never compete with our clients on a stock. If we see a client, we just walk away from auctions. I'm not interested at all. Now, this is a project we did a few years ago, and I've been noticing a lot of clients doing this recently. This is a trade example that then Meg and I did about 4 years ago. Then
Yeah, about 4 years ago.
or four
Yeah, it
years ago,
was
yeah,
yes.
it was quite a good buy because we bought the front house and the rear house and about 900 meters squared site for 1.3 million. And then we spent 50 grand on subdivision and agents fee, etc. So it cost us 1.4 million. And we sold it for 1.8 million to two separate buys. So we're paying $314,000 profit. And what we're seeing in the market at the moment is people are doing this left, right, and center. They're buying dual income properties and subdividing it because it takes about 3 minutes to get your subdivision approved. And it costs you bug all. And you can sell this property because first home buyers will buy them for 800 grand each, 8 to 900 grand each. So you make good profit out of it. And so that's why when I present, I go to people, you got to buy cash flow positive. Cash flow positive means double income. So if you go back to the other example, double income, rear property, front property. Here's an example, rear, front. I'd be happy to hold on to this property. It's a good location, all of that. But what we're seeing is we're showing you a trade example where this numbers actually work. It takes 3 to 4 months to do this, but it actually works. Um,
I, I mean, before anyone goes and buys a property like that, there are due diligence required in such, splitting a house to what home and income into two. So, make sure that you do your due diligence into saying that it can be done, before, you go on condition or anything.
yeah, absolutely. Just get it checked. Even if you get it, look, you might have done your DD before you even put an offer in. That's fine. Once you've done your DD, you can put an unconditional offer in. And it should take you basically a day to run a DD on this. All right. And here's an example we bought in 2024. We paid $1.3 million for this property. We spent about 20 grand renovating. Total cost was 1.32 million. Two dwellings, but we spec them out as disability homes. So they've been rented out on a 10-year contract at $2,500. These are specialized houses. They've been turned into very specialist homes. And that's what we get. About $2,500 a week. It's cash flow positive. Fantastic. Now, I know there's a lot of demand for disability homes around the country. So if you can get connection into that market, I suggest you look into it. If you do find them and you can't do it yourself, look for business partners. And if you can't, give Then a call. He'll find you a business partner. But if you do find this things work. Now, what is interesting about this site here, the red is our site. But look at our neighbors. They've 1,000 square meters in front, 1,000 square meters. A developer bought this property and he's gone in on 2,000 square meters of land. He's put in one, two, three, four, eight, 12 houses. 12 houses on 2,000 square meters of land. And he's built it and sold them out, and he's done really well out of that site. So that's what I mean. Those are land banking sites as well. Whoever's bought them, they're smart. They've done the smart thing here buying this property. So anyway, here's an example of cash flow positive investment. And our neighbor here is doing land banking, buying and splitting them up into 12 units. So we just want to show you what we've been up to and the kind of stuff we do. This was an example we did, I think it was last year, where we did cash flow and land banking both at the same time. Bought the property in Rotorua for 395 grand. Renovation was about 60. Total cost was 455. After renovation, value was 600 grand, 900 meter square flat site, and we can end two more dwellings here. But what happened was while we were renovating, the neighbors came over and said, "Hey, Would you be interested in buying our house? So we ended up buying the neighbor's house as well, which obviously by the time we paid for renovation and finder's cost, it was about 80 grand. So our total cost was 450, 855 meters squared land, again flat. We own the land now on both sides, right? 1,700 meters squared of land, 600 bucks a week rent. Now we got beautiful cash flow positive coming through. We got land, we've got all our money back. We ended up getting the property for free, right? Because we got all our money back. That's the beauty of doing properties like this. If buying them discounted, right, you're adding value by doing a little bit of renovation work, right? And then you're revaluing the property and grabbing all your capital out, you got the property for free and it's cash flow positive. You repeat this 100 times. You can never go wrong because you're doing well in cash flow positive and discounted properties. Here's another one we did in Rotorua. This was about 6 years ago. We did this, and trust me, guys, I've come across deals like this, and I was just half asleep a day late. People are jumping on these deals like anything. You can still buy properties, double income sites in Rotorua, or you go a little bit further out, you can still buy them. They're cash flow positive in good areas, right? We paid 515, 35 grand was the renovation cost. It came back at 850, so we got 300 grand instant equity. The rent, 1,300 bucks a week, right? It was cash flow positive after the banks and interest and everything. Cash flow positive, 40 grand a year, 800 bucks a week. Insane cash, right? Insane cash. So they exist. You just have to go and look for them. Now, sometimes you'll find these properties, but they don't look nice and pretty. But you can spend 100 grand and make them look nice and pretty. People can move in, and that's what you got to look at it. Sometimes they might be meth contaminated. It's okay. Spend some money, clean the meth out, and let people move in and live there because people want to live in accommodation like this and they work. Then, do you agree? If anything,
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
mm,
you'd be surprised what cosmetic renovation can do to a property.
yeah. And all this are not rocket science, guys. This is exactly what I was doing previously, and I'm doing it now, right? It's all basic property investing now. This is an example, and I've showed it before, and I like showing it again. Now, just going back onto this property before we take it to the next one, the rent now is $1,700 a week on this property. It's insane. It's just because it's got three dwellings, right? It's got a front house, top, and then a unit at the bottom and a unit at the back. And it's 1,000 square meters. So you've got land, you've got cash flow positive investing, and you're paying off your principal as well. Insane deal, right? This is a property we bought in Donbuck. I bought in Donbuck. This is one of my personal ones. I bought in 2010. I bought the front house for 320. Section at the back. I spent 290 on renovating the front, putting a house at the back. Back then, 610 grand was my total cost. The valuation came back at 1.6 back then. Now, who cares? I couldn't sell it for 1.6. What it allowed me to do was use the equity to buy more houses. This was, 15, 16 years ago. And that's what I did. I just used the equity, went out and bought more houses after houses. Now, this property is rented for somewhere, I think 1650 a week now. So it's cash flow positive. And I've cleared all the debt. So literally I get, all the money comes into my bank account is mine, and I just use the money to pay off the other debts, other loan on other properties because I don't need the cash flow. So that's why I'm telling you, this dwell income properties, they work, they are golden properties. And to be honest, if you buy them and for whatever reason you get tight on cash, you can sell one. Or you can sell them both to the next guy because you'll send them any time of the day, they'll sell, you know. And here's an example of developments that we do and other property investors do in Auckland, right? Here's a site we bought. We paid $1.4 million for the site, and we're building 8 units here, and our total cost is 3.4 million. The market value is 5.7 million. Equity gain is 2.3 million. Fantastic equity gain, right? And again, but this is obviously big capital, you need to put $3 to $4 million in. So, but the reason I wanted to show you this is what some of the investors are doing at the moment. They're building properties like this. And then you go, well, who'd want to live in a property like this? Well, a lot of families do want a property like this because it's affordable renting. You can rent a house like this for $650 a week and people want it. You know. Now, what we'll do is we're going to talk about, obviously, we've given you all this feedback. We've provided you our slides, and then you must be confused now, going like, well, where do we start? Right? And what we encourage you to do is this is our roadmap to get you going, right? Is work out where you want to be, right? And that's important. So work out where you are and where you want to be. That's important. That's your important starting point. Because you might say, okay, mum and dad, we've got a family home, we've got equity, we want to buy a badge, we want to have two nice cars, a boat, could be $4 or $5 million assets. That's fantastic. It's normal, right? That's normal to think of things like that. So if that's what you want, so come up with a 10-year plan, and then you start going out there, getting your funding put in place, and start looking at stuff. Now, we do have a software that we offer to our client base. It's a Wealth Suite software where you get to put your asset or portfolio where you are currently, what you need to do. And sometimes we get clients to sell some of their assets if they're too negative to buy cash flow positive assets as well. All right. So, really important. So, you need to get the right knowledge. Now, what is right knowledge? You surround yourself with people who understand property investing, right? Who understand money, things like that, right? People like Than and Maggie who understand details, right? I'm not a very detailed guy, but Maggie and Than are. You surround yourself with people like that. And then you go to and do our property school, which is one of our educations we run. The thing about property school is you might get bored, you do it once, right? Do it again. We give you access to a lot of supply chain in there. You get access to mortgage brokers, real estate agents, suppliers, things like that. And we also do development school. So if you've done property school, do development school. It's actually quite helpful. But we're providing all these courses to you. What you do with this, it's your choice, right? And remember, you get, like I said, if you find a site you're not sure, use Thin and Maggie, right? But get in there because there's some good sites to be bought. You get a strategy put in place. Or you might say, okay, I want to trade for the next 10 years. Well, then you go out and trade. Or you want to buy and hold, you go out and buy and create a hold portfolio. Very important you get your structures right, guys, before you go to the bank. Super, super important. Because if your structures are right and you've got the right structures in place, then your borrowing becomes easy, and the banks give you pre-approval. If you get borrowing approved in your name, and then you go and buy a house, and then you're trying to set up a structure, the banks don't like it. Get your structure going up front, and then go and get your finance in place. And like we said, if you don't have access to mortgage brokers, get hold of us, and we'll give you some good mortgage brokers you can work with. And once you have your pre-approval in place, you can start buying houses, right? And the same scenario applies to people with good equity in place, and they haven't put their overdraft facilities in place or offset. Please go and do that, guys. Very important. Now, then, Maggie, if you want to jump in here, Maggie's got a really sore voice. Or she's been sick. Yeah,
And then this roadmap is I could relate to it because myself this is how my journey started, and even property school, in the earlier days when it was done in-house, before I was part of GRA, I attended the property school in-house where Matthew Gilligan was presenting, and like Celeste said, you take few bullet points from there going and makes it click, and that's kind of the strategy in taking. And the good thing is like you're listening and you're hearing from people who actually done it, right, talking, walking the walk, showing you real numbers. And if someone else can do it, and this has always been my philosophy, is why can't I do it or get a small proportion of it? Wouldn't that be nice? And then kind of motivates myself to move forward. So,
yeah.
if you can put yourself some time and getting yourself educated in property, if that's what you really want to do, and I'm assuming that's why you all are here, this is a roadmap for you. And the reason why we say that is to go through this journey is that, don't come to myself, Maggie, or Salesh tomorrow going, I'm looking at this property if you don't understand the fundamental, because then you're just wasting your time and money.
Hmm. You got to understand the fundamentals, guys. And like property school, development school gives you that fundamental, right? And look, I think property school is what, $500. I'll bring up, sorry, I'll bring up the next slide. I think property school is $500 for the year you have to buy, but I can tell you we've spent thousands and thousands of dollars just setting up property school. It's one of the best education system we've set up. So suggest you sign up if you haven't, or get your kids into it, get them to start lending. And what happens is once you get that lending going, you get access to the supply chain and things like that. Um, like a little bit of detail about property school. You've got successful investing theories we talk about. We talk about what properties to avoid. They're dud properties. You run away from those properties because those properties don't go up in value, and you become a confident and informed investor. You just know who to talk to. The biggest thing is knowing who to talk to and how to put a contract together. It's huge amounts of value in there, high content value. It's you know good, at least good over 100 years of experience in there. And we talk about different kind of markets and what do you need to do as markets change. I personally think the good buys are now. I don't think the good buys will hang out for too long now. They are on their way up. Stocks are selling. Um, we also got, the Wealth Suite we were talking about. If you do sign up for property school, we give you access to free Wealth Suite, and you can use that to your advantage as well. Now, guys, if you do sign up for property school today, um, we also go into the draw to have that dinner with Dan, Matt, and I. I'm telling you, that'll be a funny dinner. We're funny, but we are very informative, so you'll definitely have a good time, you and your spouse, or you can bring a friend, doesn't matter. Um, Thane's not allowed to bring a friend. It's only the 5 plus you and your spouse.
Then it would be way too much funny in there. It won't stop at dinner.
So, guys, if you've never had a chance to buy Matt's book, feel free to grab one of his books. But if you sign up for property school, we'll throw in the 2 books for free. We like to share our knowledge, guys. We trust me, we don't make money by selling your property school for $495. It's not about that, right? It's about giving you information, sharing information and knowledge. That's what property school is about. If you do want to buy one or email Amy, she'll sort you out. Now, guys, this is my recommendation. Now, this is a recommendation I've been giving for the last probably 10 years and hasn't changed. And I won't change this because this stands. Don't do nothing. You act sooner, not later. You got to act now. If you got good equity in place, please go and put those overdraft facilities in place. You know, do all that. Get your working capital facilities up and running. Very important. Don't use lack of time or fear as an excuse. If someone tells me they don't have time, just look at your screen time on your phone. You'll be shocked how much time you spend on your phone. So yes, everyone has time, right? It doesn't require a lot of time, but if you're out there looking for properties, you'll find good deals. Draw yourself a timeline with targets, right? What do you want? Could have a 4 year time frame, or 7 years, or 10 years. 10 years is a good and realistic time frame to grow yourself a property portfolio. If I was getting into properties today, right now, my only thing would be I'd be chasing discounted properties like anything, followed by cash flow positive, right? But discounted would be my number one choice because that's how you create instant wealth. You bought properties at a discount price. Like I said, surround yourself with the right people, right? I'm a big believer in properties, right? I have made mistakes in properties. I've lost money in properties, right? But I've learned from it. Think to long term when it comes to property investing. You can't think short term, guys. So you got to think long term, 7 to 10 years. Now, one thing I like to always talk about is insurance, guys. Very important. Like, this morning I woke up, I learned about this earthquake. I think it was Colombia had an earthquake this morning, and a lot of people have died and had their assets being damaged. Please go and renew your property insurance. Make sure you have the right cover in place. I've still got clients, their property that's worth 1.5 million is covered for 400 grand. It's insane. Don't do that, please, because the cost of replacing a property is expensive. Even to do retaining walls is a couple of 100 grand now. If you're doing big retaining walls. So insure your properties properly. It takes you a good half an hour to go through this with your insurance company. Do it. Now, if you can't do it, you can get hold of Initio. They'll assess it for you. They'll come back and give you a number or as appraisal as to what they can insure properties for. Initio is one of the cheapest insurance companies out there, and a lot of clients use them. Now, what I also encourage everyone to do is to look at their life insurance, health insurance. Really important, guys. This health insurance, life insurance investment is equally as important as buying investments or securing your family's future, right? You've got to have the right insurance in place. Now, a lot of our clients use Risk Direct, a guy by the name of Steve Monroe and his team, Sam. They help a lot of clients that over the years helping put insurances in place. And look, they can review your insurance for free, right? And give you an opinion. If they believe your insurance has the right cover in place, they'll tell you that. If they believe there's changes needed, they'll tell you that. They can't sell you anything for the sake of selling you insurance. They're not allowed to do that, right? It's a really controlled product. So they can review your current setup and give you opinion on that, or or they'll go and price up a better product if they believe so. You need a better product, and it's your choice if you want to get on with it. But this is all free services, guys. Make use of it, please. I personally had to use my insurance last week. I had I'll say a major surgery, but probably then would say it was just minor. I just had my
I mean, yeah, I mean, depending on the perspective of who's going through the surgery, but yeah.
Well, I pay a 7 grand a year on healthcare insurance for me and my family. So two kids, a couple of wives. Not kidding, one wife. And Amanda will kill me tomorrow for saying that. One wife. And that's four of us. We have insurance in place, and that cost me 7.5 to 8 grand a year. Last week, personally, I had to use 14 grand worth of insurance, right? So very important, guys. Have your right personal insurance in place. Now, this is a text message between a client and me. This client here, I met him in 2009 or 10. It was a very dark day for him when I met him. He was about negative 1.5 million in equity. That was back then. That was a lot of money. That's like saying to someone, mate, you're negative $7 million today. So he was really, really nervous. So he writes to me because I've been updating my wealth suite. I'm sitting around $7 million in just in property. What it means is $7 million in equity. Big gains in the last 12 months, probably in the last 6 months. And the blue is me replying, yep, you should be over $10 million in net worth. Now, what I mean by saying that is 10 million is including his business. He should be over $10 million. And then I go, you have done well, mate. He goes, wow, yeah, maybe $10 million doesn't feel like it, but thanks, you helped me a lot. So I appreciate that too. Now, what he's saying is over the years, I've been guiding him through what kind of properties and business we should be buying. And if you look at my reply, I think it's just sticking to the game plan. Buy properties, pay off debt, right? So this guy has been with me since 2009. We've been buying properties, paying off debt, buy good assets, land bank, cash flow positive. That is my golden ingredient to property investing. There's no other science to my property investing. That is it in summary. Now, the reason I'm showing this text message is because I gave my phone to Maggie. She was reading through some of the messages and she said, wow, this is amazing. We should use it for our presentation, no? So that's why I've got it here, guys. So I'm still a big believer in property investing, and I've got clients that have done well. Actually, 95% of my client base are multimillionaires. And the reason they are multimillionaires is because they've done good property investing. Now, guys, we're going to start answering your questions. So I expect some really good, cool questions to come through shortly. Maggie's going to get up there and read those questions out for me. Anything, guys, ask me. Don't be shy because there's no such thing as a stupid question. Everything has meaning. So ask me and I'll answer them for you. If you want connections to the banks, to the insurance company, ask me. If you do fill out the form, you have Amy contacting you to organize a meeting time. If you are a GRA client and you need a second eyes or second set of eyes to run over your portfolio, please fill the form out. We'll get in touch with you and get you sorted as well. I think we've got some questions coming through.
Yes, we do. Natalie asks, how do you find a discounted property?
Then do you want to answer that or do you want me to have a go at that?
We could both give it a crack. I mean, if you're purely relying on online, then you're gonna miss the boat. So for me personally, I build relationship with real estate agents. So as soon as a listing is coming through, or if they signed up a property, they'll give me a call in advance, saying, "Hey, this is potentially something that fits your criteria." So making friends with real estate agents, but also having buyers agents agent who work for you in the sense that they know what you want. So, if they do find a deal for you, that they get paid the commission from your end.
Yeah. Fantastic. And what the way I find properties, and I actually looked up yesterday on Trade Me, there was a desperate seller who informed the agent that they're desperately selling. So the property was 1.2 million in Territory Peninsula, and they had it down to 850 grand. They wanted it gone. So you look up on TradeMe, you'll find them. But sometimes it's word of mouth as well. If you've got family and friends, someone trying to sell properties, go and have a look at them. Because you might be able to negotiate a price which is lower than market value. You also get to save them money in terms of renovation, um, agents fee, and things like that. So you'll find them. But yeah, having a buyer's agent or having a real estate as your mate, you can buy some good properties, very discounted and good properties, like we did last week, just showing up to the site,
Mhm.
making decisions on the day. Maggie, you got the next question coming up?
Yes. What sort of properties are selling best from an investor developer perspective? Attached new builds or older standalone relocatables?
Both. Now, I'm going to say if you're doing standalone relocatables, I will definitely sell because those are very rare stock, right? People like them because you've got lots of parking, right? They sell. Now, attached new builds, they sell as well, provided you give them garage or carport to park their cars, right? And the floor of their house is nice. They get a little bit of backyard, whatever it is, just a little bit of deck and a little bit of backyard. They can park their cars in the garage or in the carport, right? And if you look at basically attached houses, if you can have two toilets and bathrooms, guys, that's another bonus. They're selling. Then, do you agree?
Yeah, definitely. And and we've seen an instance where uh, a developer has put out a build a house and there's a shitty layout.
Yeah.
They had to drop the price to get it sold, sorry. So, walk yourself in the shoe of the buyer.
Mm,
Would you live in a house like this? Does the layout suits the family? All that. It's not just cookie cutters and this is what we're going to drop in this
yeah.
site. Go through that process, see the flow. This is all thing that we cover in property school and development school, like, first impression, what the buyer sees. It is one of the biggest purchase someone is going to do in their lifetime is buying a home. So make it something that they will fall in love.
Yeah.
Well, one,
Absolutely. Yeah. Sorry.
I saw one advertised the other day where a downstairs toilet opens straight off the kitchen.
Oh, that's
I'm,
like that
I'm
sounds.
sure we can come up with a better design than that, but that's probably
Yeah.
the kind of thing that wouldn't sell in a hurry.
Yeah. I mean, if you're gonna put it downstairs, some toilet, you could probably. But if you can't, you got to park it away from the lounge or from the kitchen. Sometimes you can park it next to the laundry.
Mm.
Just a separate toilet.
And we're at a buyer's market, so the options are numerous for buyers. So they can pick and choose, and they could say, "Oh, I don't like this," and then all of a sudden there are two other options, and they could, that's it. So you got to make sure that your build is quality and it has a good attraction for the buyer.
Yeah.
Mm. Uh,
Absolutely.
but interesting that we haven't been asked about freestanding new builds because that's an option as well. Not
Mm,
necessarily just older relocatables. You can transport brand new homes or build them on site, and a freestanding build doesn't have to be an expensive one.
yes. The only thing is like Maggie probably has a fair point here.
Yeah.
If it's you could end up buying a brand new relocatable for 350 or 400 grand, right? Whereas you buy a second hand one for 150 and you probably end up spending 150 doing it up. But again, it depends on the area because there's certain areas you're not going to get above a certain limit. Doesn't matter
Mm.
if you put a Taj Mahal on it. That's your market and that's what you're going to get paid.
Yeah, and very much depends on the second-hand relocatable too, whether it's free, um, in
Yeah.
what conditions it's in, and how much work it needs.
Yeah. I saw a development in Glen Eden where the guy just wanted to put as many houses as he could. No car park, no backyard, nothing. Two bedrooms. He ended up selling them for 450. He made no money. It's ridiculous.
Mm.
It's like, why would you even do that? All you needed to do was maybe build three less houses. You could come up with a massive margin on the portfolio.
Mm.
It's not all about building. I was just surprised. He wanted me to buy it, and I looked at it and I thought, wow. I mean, I don't even know if the tenants would want to stay back here because imagine getting your kids ready in the morning to go to school and it's raining, it's wet, and by the time you make it to the car, you're sogging wet. it's not nice. So I totally disagree, but maybe I'm wrong. Sorry, Maggie, you got the next question coming up?
Yes. Daniel asks, how have you structured your long-term rental properties? Held in a company or a look-through company with a trust as shareholder?
So all my long-term rentals are owned via company, so a look-through company, which is 100% owned by a trust, right? So that's how I've structured my affairs. Now, Daniel, if obviously my affairs is a bit different to yours, and so you will have a bespoke structure for yourself, what works well for you. Now, also, I don't have the same trust that owns my rental properties, shares of shares of my LTC. I don't have that trust owning shares of my development company. The reason is I don't want to mix up my development activities through with my whole long-term whole property investments. So I have a different trust which owns shares of all my development companies. So I keep it really separate. But yes, I use a company in a trust structure. And the reason I use more companies and trust structures is so I can get more funding, and I don't want the banks to all put their hooks into the same company. So I think it's more if we meet one to one, we can give you a bespoke advice or customize it around you.
Sharon asks for contact details at the bank for refinancing.
Sharon, if you flick an email to Amy or you fill out the forms, Amy will get in touch with you tomorrow and get that sorted for you.
Jacob, what are your thoughts on purchasing townhouses? They a worthwhile buy and hold investment?
Well, Jacob, I mean, that's what we were talking about earlier, townhouses. If you've got a good layout, you got parking, and it's cash flow positive, you're getting cash flow positive return out of it, so you don't have to top up, then anything is good, right? And we've seen clients buy some really good investment properties, townhouses with parking, discounted, and cash flow positive, right? So if those things work, they work. And why wouldn't you buy it? Because they're good, nice houses and less maintenance as well. And tenants actually like it as well, because no one wants to own a lawnmower now. A lawnmower is, you need to be a rocket scientist to run a lawnmower. So no one wants to own it anymore. Everyone's happy just to walk inside, play on their iPad, do whatever they need to, get in the car, go to the park, run around, come back, you know? So yeah, that's my answer to that.
Mm-hmm. Next question. What about buying properties off the plans? Can this be a good move?
Well, be very careful with buying properties off the plan. Watch out for your sunset clause. Um, watch out for cost overruns. Watch out for how your deposit is released out. So you got to watch all that. Get your lawyers to read all the contracts, understand your liability, right? And we also want to do a research on who the developer is. If they're good developers, good guys, then obviously that's something you can go for. But again, you're buying it as a family home, or you're buying it as investment property. If you're buying it as investment property, is it cash flow positive? Is it discounted? All of that. But the lawyers must review the contract and understand all your legal perspective.
Sharon asks, also, can you please expand on the business loan funding of 100% for owner-occupied buildings?
Yeah, so if you run your business out of a warehouse, right? Let's say, and the warehouse is worth $1 million. If your business is doing well, the banks are allowed to lend you 100% of the owner-occupier building, right? And they'll fund it at 100%. It'll definitely be P&I, so you've got to pay principal and interest over 15 years. But you don't have to put a deposit down. They'll fund your owner-occupied. So you must be running your business out of there. You can't just say, I'm going to buy it and rent it to someone else. Then that doesn't work. So you got to be an owner-occupier business owner to get that kind of funding.
Matt asks, what markets are most attractive for discounting and cash flow perspective?
Sorry, Matt, what do you
You
mean?
might be asking about location.
Oh, okay. What locations? Well, to be honest, you actually just have to go around and look for them. They're kind of everywhere. I know in Remuera, sometimes people are buying well discounted properties as well. So you need to go and look out. But the most attractive ones, properties or investment properties, are the ones next to schools. Doesn't matter if it's a good school, bad school, whatever. All schools are good. I went to Kelson Boys, one of well, probably the roughest schools out west, but all schools are good. It works. So I think it's just buying next to schools or next to where the jobs are, infrastructure is, it works. So uh,
And
mm,
do your research because that's the biggest part of all of your due diligence is if you're finding out when you're getting discount, what are the average sales of properties in that area, or, of similar conditions, what kind of discount you could get, but also then talking to property uh, rental property managers to see that the rental demand in that area. Because last thing is that you don't want to buy something heavily discounted, but then not being able to have the demand to rent it to someone.
yes, correct. Correct.
Bryn asks, do you have any experience with renting properties as short-term visitor accommodation, e.g. Airbnb, versus permanent tenants? Needs to be in the right place, e.g. Queenstown, but can eliminate some of the issues experienced with permanent tenants and income can be good. We currently have an apartment and do this, run through a business and keep under the 60K GST threshold. Just be interested in thoughts on this type of rental versus permanent tenants.
Yeah, I have seen some clients run Airbnb and actually some do really well. And the ones that do really well, they kind of have to go over the 60K threshold mark. So they have to go through and register themselves for GST and things like that. The thing about Airbnb tenants is they actually are quite hard on the property. Like, every 5 years or every 3 years, you kind of have to refurbish the property because they get used like a hotel. So you've got to keep up with your maintenance and things like that. So that's why you've got to be careful with Airbnb as well. But I know in Queenstown, it works perfectly fine, right? But in Auckland, people are struggling with Airbnb at the moment, right? So it all depends where the tourists are coming and where you are. In Queenstown, it works, but you can't apply the same principle to other parts of the country. And like you look at up north, that's more for summer area. So all the Airbnb gets booked out during summer. By winter, it's totally dead. No one's there. So yes, it works. I mean, look, if you can rent your house, say 30 or 40 weeks a year and get away without having a permanent tenant, why not? But Queenstown is the place to be for that.
Yeah, because you want a lot of income to cover all the additional costs or the cleaning
Yes,
and
absolutely.
replacement of all the furnishings regularly
Yeah.
whenever they get damaged or stained and so forth.
And I suggest Brian, like, probably if you want to talk about this, maybe book a meeting time as well. We can go through this together and and just review your affairs and see if there's other ways to get around the GST and things like that.
Daniel asks, do you also hold commercial property or do you focus on residential?
No, no, I do commercial as well. And I was very lucky to get into commercial about 10 or 11 years ago. So I bought some really good commercial properties. It's about three of them. And now that land has been rezoned for apartment zoning. So that I think we paid 1.6 million. I think the land with that apartment zoning should be valued at between 6 to 7 million. So that was quite good. And it gives us about 3 grand a week cash flow rental income as well. And the loan's been repaid because commercial loans are principal and interest repayment. So we've paid the debt down quite a bit as well.
Next question. If you have a trust that owns an LTC rental company, the bank takes a personal guarantee from you. So, how does that separate your personal home and rentals?
Well, remember, so personal guarantee is the guarantee you provide to whoever you signing the loan documents with, right? So with the banks or with your suppliers, right? Now, security is what we talk about. Bank one, bank two, bank three, right? This is what we call a split loan structure. Security is when you have your family home with bank one, right? Then you have your rental with bank two. Now, bank two will not put a security on your family home because the main tier lenders do not do that, right? They'll only give you funding and they want to be the preferred security holder, right? So you got to use two banks. You can't use the same bank. Now, if in the event you're using the same bank, you can specifically request the banks not to cross secure the properties. And if you can get away with that, you won that deal. But in the event you can't, they'll cross secure both properties, right? But if you use two different banks, bank one will not secure bank two property, and bank two will not secure bank one property. You use that as security. So that's the beautiful or advantage of using different structures and how they work. And also, when you have a structure, let's say you have a LTC and you're banking with bank two, they're not interested in what bank one is doing. They have zero interest. It's not in their entity. They don't care. And it makes funding easy. So structures are very important.
And
So
you can't get away from a personal guarantee. It's not just something that happens with a look-through company. It would happen with an ordinary company or a trust.
correct.
Well, whenever you're not borrowing in your own personal name.
So I think the question, I think what you were probably trying to ask more was like the security, in terms of security, right? That's how you separate your securities away. So the
Yeah.
banks don't hook your family home, your rental in together.
Zane asks if we have any thoughts about the coming election, in particular, Labor removing interest deductibility.
Well, Labor has said something very clearly. I think they stuffed up last time by making interest deductibility such a harsh thing to investors because, a lot of investors were with social housing providers, so they got 100% deductibility. Well, that's what I got, one, right? But the second thing is when you bring interest non-deductibility, it pushes the rent up. It pushes the rent up because there's a massive exit of investors. But the rich investors sit there and they buy all the stock. They put the rent up. And that's what I did. I put my rent up $150 to $200 a week. I actually wrote to one of the news reporters and said, I'm going to do this. And I didn't. And the news reporter took my story to Grant Robertson. I think he was the finance minister at the time. And Grant Robertson said, no, this can't happen. It actually happened. When you bring interest non-deductibility in, right, you see a massive exit of investors. The rich investors dominate and they put the rent up. And they don't care. They'll put the rent up and they'll put social housing in as well. So I think Labor is now more careful with interest non-deductibility.
Last question, do rent-to-buy options still exist? And if so, does it make sense from a seller's perspective? What does the ROI look like?
You got to be careful with rent to buy. Rent to buy options because that's probably something I haven't probably worked on in 20 years, and that was something more common 20 years ago. What happened was when you do rent to buy, not only are you paying the rent, you're paying extra towards the principal. But that's on the basis your vendor or your landlord doesn't go broke or is not forced to sell the property. Then you lose your money, right? So you've got to be very careful. I haven't seen a rent to buy example in a long time. So I don't even know what the returns are on that. And I don't think anyone's doing it. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work because it creates all these other tax problems as well. So, and most of the time, your accountants and your lawyers will talk you out of doing rent to buy options. Because if you don't know your landlord's or your vendor's financial circumstances, you could be throwing your money away into a hole. Because if they've got a bank funding them at the back, the banks get the first call on the property, not you as the buyer. So I don't know what the ROI is and all that. Sorry, no idea. Now, guys, I think that was our final question. But if you've got more questions, we'll probably hang around for the next 30 seconds before we start answering them. But don't forget to fill out your forms. We look forward to seeing you. Like we said, we love sharing our ideas. And the more information we can share with you, the better informed you become, and you have more knowledge and access to people like Dan, Maggie, and me, and bankers as well. So, yeah, thank you for listening to us. And I think we're good to go, Maggie. We've answered all the questions.
That's all our questions done.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Have a good night. See you.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night. Thank you.